Welcome to Money Making Conversations. I am your host, Rushion McDonald. Like I tell everybody every week who listens or watches my show, it's time for you to stop reading other people's success stories and actually start writing your own. I always tell people talk about their gifts, they talk about their passion. I always tell people lead with your gifts and don't let your age, friends, family, or coworkers stop you from planning or living your dreams. My interviews provided on this show are meet and talk with celebrities, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and people I like to call industry decision makers. My next guest is Tina Andrews. She is an award-winning writer, producer, director, and author. Her epic CBS miniseries, Sally Hemings, An American Scandal, garnered her 2 NAACP Image Awards and a WGA Award for long form and became the first African-American woman to receive the Writers Guild of America honor for original long form. Tina also wrote and produced the successful CBS miniseries movie Jackie about Jackie Kennedy Onassis and wrote the movie Why Do Fools Fall in Love, one of my favorites, with Halle Berry, Vivica A. Fox, Layla Rashawn, and my man Lorenz Tate. Her acclaimed historical novel about Queen Charlotte, Sophia, has been acquired by HBO Max, is now available as an audiobook as well. It's all about building your brand, and she's here to tell us how she's doing hers. Please welcome to Money Making Conversations, Tina Andrews.
Hi there.
How you doing,
Thank
Tina?
you so much for having me.
Well, I always love when I bring talent, because you're African American talent, but I see crossover opportunities, like we saw with the Jackie Onassis. Because sometimes we get pigeonholed. People say we can only tell a story based on our color. When you got that opportunity to do the Jackie Kennedy Onassis, walk us through the step of if there were some obstacles, how you was able to convince people that you could do this series, and when it turned out to be successful, what was the reaction?
Well, Rashad, I'm going to tell you something. That was the easiest gig I ever got. I had done. I mean, it's always that way, that whenever you're sort of pioneering, sometimes the job becomes easier than most people think.
Right.
I had done Sally Hemings.
Mm-hmm.
Sally Hemings was a juggernaut success.
Yes, it was.
And so I get a phone call on a Monday morning from the powers that be at CBS.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told, hey, Tina, you love doing historical projects. I mean, I have something that we think would be in your sweet spot.
Mm.
We've acquired a book on the First Lady, Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis. How would you like to turn that into a 4-hour miniseries?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on the other end and I'm saying, Jackie Kennedy? I said, you realize you called a Black woman, right?
Right.
And so I was told that they were so happy with what I had done with not only Sally, but it was also the dramatization of Thomas Jefferson,
Mm-hmm.
that made them feel confident and comfortable in my handling First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy. And so I jumped at that opportunity because, in the past, it has always been members of another culture writing our stories.
Right.
And so for a change, I said, we can sort of flip the script on this, and it'll be me writing this wonderful, indomitable First Lady story. So I hopped at that opportunity, and it was wonderful because, first of all, I knew a lot about her. I had done a lot of work on Jack Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, on Dr. Martin Luther King.
Right.
So the first thing I did was contact Mrs. King, and I asked her if I could come down to Atlanta to meet with her, because I know she and Jackie had a relationship. And so then I thought, I'll be able to add some things to a Jackie Kennedy story that a member of another culture may not have even been interested in adding. So it's good for me.
Mm-hmm. Now, the wonderful thing about it is that when you grab an iconic figure like she is, Jackie Kennedy Onassis, you have some things already bedded in. How do you start layering it down to really, like you said, you was able to find a nugget in the relationship she had with Mrs. King, Dr. Martin Luther King's wife. Now, when you were doing your research, did any other interesting thing pop up in her that you didn't see coming that made for great storytelling in this four episode miniseries?
will tell you that they had given me a book that they bought. So pretty much that book told Mrs. Kennedy's story. Mm-hmm. But what I was fascinated by is that Mrs. Kennedy had difficulties with her father. Her father, Black Jack Bouvier, she sort of felt like she was not the beloved Kennedy daughter. Well, not Kennedy at that time, Bouvier daughter. Mm-hmm. She had a good relationship with her sister, but like siblings, they sort of went in and out. And I wanted to show that it wasn't such an easy road for her. This is a woman who had the ambition to be a photographer. We forget that. Before the pillbox hats, right, there was this ambitious woman.
Mm-hmm. The interesting thing about it, like I started out in Hollywood as a sitcom writer. They wrote, Steve Harvey's first sitcom in '93, Me and the Boys. '94, Me and the Boys, and then we did Robert Townsend's Parenthood. I did ABC with Arsenio's Hall sitcom, and I did Sisters with the twins Tia and Tamara Mowry, and went over to Jamie Foxx, and I did the Parkers. And along the way, I'm feeling that I have a skill set that can be transferable. And this is what we were talking about earlier when you said they called you as an African American to do a white project. And every time I wrote a sitcom, I try to get on a Home Improvement at the time or a Seinfeld or Friends, I had to write their style of sitcom. Otherwise, they felt that I wasn't a real writer. And just talking to young people and talking to people who are aspiring to be in this industry, which is what we call Hollywood. It really does. You really can't be pitted into a corner and said, this is what you only can do. And that's why I champion and admire what you're accomplishing as a writer, as a producer, because that's a hard door to open. Walking over to say, I can do any type of project because I have the skill set. Do not deny me because of the color of my skin. Correct, Miss?
Right. Or gender or age or any of that. I'm not into any of the isms. But I will tell you, Rushion, I had to show people what I could do first. Now, let's face it, for many of us of color, the door to success here in Hollywood is writing a comedy. You said you started out doing quite a few comedies. Mm-hmm. I could not get a movie made unless it was funny. Mm-hmm. Or if I did have a piece that was serious in nature, I was always told, add the funny to it. For instance, I'll give you an example. On the movie that you said you liked, Why Do Fools Fall in Love? Mm-hmm. That's a serious film about a young man who ended up spiraling into the abyss of drug abuse. In fact, heroin abuse.
Right.
And yet he had married 3 women and not divorced any of them before he died and left this estate. And that became the through end to the story. Mm-hmm. Well, at the end of the day, those 3 women, started out hating each other. And so it left room for some very sort of funny things to go on in that courtroom situation. And I remembered being told by Warner's, oh my God, Tina, every time you put the 3 women together in a room, it's hilarious.
Right.
So, do a little more than that so that we don't spend so much time in his slow descent into drug abuse. So I needed to show people that I could write seriously. Mm-hmm. So once I became successful doing those types of films, I was then able to say to the agency, hey, let's get out there and sell the stuff that I already have written to show people that I am a dramatic writer. And that stuff took off. Yeah.
Congratulations. I'm talking to Tina Andrews. I want to say, can I say the word brilliant? Tina Andrews, award-winning Tina Andrews. Can I add some more to it? It was a series that's been acquired by HBO Max called Charlotte Sophia. I know we're going to get to that, but I just like to talk about the journey because if I start there at the HBO Max project, I really don't feel that people will appreciate the journey, and I would throw out my little acting credit, Tina. I starred in Jason's Lyrics. I was a tap dancer and way back in the day in Houston, Texas, and Fast Freddy was my name. And then I read your bio, and it's tied to the amazing series that changed television, Roots.
That's right.
By Alex Hayes.
That's right.
And I still, because we look at television now, you see so many African Americans on commercials, you see mixed couples, you see African Americans hugging each other, mixed couples. It just really, television has evolved in and just 5 years ago, they tried to take Cheerios off the shelves because they had a little white looking girl,
a little biracial girl. Yes, right, that's right.
Right. And so, but you were on television about a project about slavery. If you could walk Roots, everybody, an iconic series now, but we didn't know how people will react to that. But you were part of that, and I'm sure it affected your life, your thought process, and also threw you in the forefront of American conversation. Talk about that. We can journey back there a little bit and then move forward.
Okay, well, actually, I would like to go one project just before Roots. We have to remember, I had the first interracial relationship on daytime television on Days of Our Lives.
Okay, see, they didn't put that in the bio, Tina. They didn't put that in the bio. I did my research.
That bio was cut because that was a major project for me to be involved with. We kissed on a Friday after 2 years of, looking lovingly at each other. And we kissed on a Friday, and 5,000 negative, horrible hate letters came to NBC.
Right.
So I know what it's like to be involved in a project that gets a lot of attention and that becomes very controversial. Right after I left Days of Our Lives, because of that negative publicity, I had to go. I was the one who was let go, not the white guy.
Right.
I ended up in Roots. And we knew from the second we got the very first pilot episode that it was going to be phenomenal. The book had been so successful. I had worked for two of the directors who were involved in it. And one of them was the one who called me and said, I've got 2 roles here. Pick one, whichever one you want.
Beautiful.
You can do it. And I was so grateful to John Ehrman for that opportunity. And we got involved, and it felt like the ancestors carried us through the entire production. We were on the shoulders of those who came before. So we instantly knew that we were going to be a successful miniseries. We just didn't know how successful. As a result of that, of course, I became very good friends with Alex Haley. And it was Alex who, quite frankly, gave me my first opportunity as a writer. And by the way, as a writer to work with him on a PBS project. So I am indebted to, again, those who've gone before. I am indebted to Mr. Haley for first of all, having written Roots, and then for allowing me to be in Roots. And then I sent him, frankly, a Bob Marley story, and I sent him Sally Hemings, and he read those 2 scripts and called me, in fact, and said, when did you become such a good writer? We need to do a project together. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is 8 Emmy Awards winning Alex Haley who wants to work with me.
Yes.
Yeah, so there have been a series of situations where the career built.
Well, interesting.
And then it built to the Charlotte Sophia project.
Well, let's go to that now, because we all know that, Tina, when you talk about, it's really, your story is so interesting because, like I said, when you are first, when you are a groundbreaker, a pioneer, I can use those terms in front of you, because sometimes you get setbacks. Like you said, you did a role that was requested of you on Days of Our Lives, and then all of a sudden a letter comes in, and the network becomes frightened by it, and you are terminated.
Right.
That moment of being out there, who did you call in? Who did you seek advice from or support from? Or did you feel you were just out there by yourself and no one could help you?
Oh, no, my father was still alive. My father is probably the most important person in terms of the career. I would call my father crying all the time.
Right.
during Days of Our Lives with the negative publicity. They would not let me get my mail before we shot for the day. The network said, give her fan mail after she finishes so that I could go home and cry. So I called Daddy and I said, I don't know what's going on, but I'm really depressed. I can't find really great. There are not enough really great, empowering, dignified roles for Black women, and I feel like I'm going to be stuck in this situation of playing, the drug addict or the round the way girl or whatever. Too much of that is coming up.
Yes, it is.
And my father had it with me, and he said, "Look, I sent you to NYU to be a playwright. You were supposed to be a writer. Yeah, I know you wanted to dance, but I figured that was only going to last a few years. You were going to really find your voice as a playwright. Why are you complaining about the roles that are not there when you are capable of writing those roles?
Wow.
You need to take your writing career seriously. It's all cute that you're an actress, but I'm afraid that one of these days, someone is going to ask you to be naked in a movie, and you're going to say yes to that role because you can't pay your rent. I would much prefer you call me and let me send you the money for your rent. And you sit down. In those days, of course, we're talking typewriters. You sit down at the typewriter.
IBM Select.
And he said, and you write that dignified, empowered role for a Black woman that you would like to play. And, some years later, there was a movie, a Kevin Costner movie, and the tagline was, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah. Field of Dreams.
Yes, that's exactly right. And my father was correct. In his library was a book by Black historian, J.A. Rogers. And it was called Race and Sex. And the second page in was a big picture of a woman who clearly looked ethnic, but she was in royal attire. And it was a black and white, obviously it wasn't, a color. And it said, Charlotte Sophia, England's first Black queen. And I read back and said, what? Black queen? How do we not know that? Listen, how was I not taught that? In my history classes, we were taught about King George and him going mad.
Yes.
and the Revolutionary War that he sent the redcoats, over here to fight us against. We knew everything about the husband. Why did we not know that his wife was a woman of color? I could not find that much research in those days. And so I sort of put it in the back of my mind. One of these days, I'm going to write that story. And at the time, I'm thinking maybe, who knows, I can get Halle Berry to play it. This is before Fools. This is before Sally Hemings. This is before all of that. My father died and left me his library. And all of those books came to my then house in the Hollywood Hills. And I found it again. And I said, you may want to investigate this story. And when Sally Hemings had done so well, people began to ask, what are you going to do for an encore? What do you do next?
What's next?
How do you top Sally Hemings? And I thought, wow, this would be the project, not realizing it was going to take me 8 years to write the book and all the research 2 and 3 times going to London. Of course, I need no excuse to go to London. I love London. But I was there researching at the British Library, at the Windsor and Buckingham Archives, at the British Museum. And then I put it together. And the moment that book hit the marketplace, there was a surge of course, British people who were saying, oh, no, we're not going to let you do this. This is not a story that we're interested in. And yet British people were buying the book. And I get last year a phone call out of the blue from an HBO executive who said, I'd like to speak to Tina Andrews. And I said, speaking. And so she said, here's who I am and I'm at HBO Max in International. And my mother loved your book. And I'm thinking, your mother? And so she said, my mother turned me on to this book. And she said, when you get your promotion, let this be the first book that you buy to have on the channel.
Wow.
And I nearly died because once again, it was like spirit creating the atmosphere and the environment and the place to put that story after so long with the research.
Well, the thing I love about talking to you, first of all, it's almost like I'm talking to royalty. You're so elegant and you're so pronounced in your tone. You're so elegant in your gestures. And, there's a certain amount of success and confidence in speaking to you. I hope people watch this. You can hear it on audio, of course, but I hope people get to watch this actual interview because it's impressive when I see people, because you've had a journey in your life, and sometimes journeys can beat you down. Sometimes journeys can wear you down. I just see that when I'm looking at you and listening to you, Tina, I'm seeing a person who basically understands the purpose of who you are. And your father obviously built that into you and said, hey, this is who you are. This is who you can be. Control your destiny. Is that key to what I'm saying? That basically, I know that's why I stopped acting and became a writer and producer. I feel I can control my destiny. Plus, I realized, one day I'm going to get old and I can probably still write. I can probably still produce. I can stop being creative, but they can minimize my success based on my color and based on my age, but they can never minimize my success based on how I think. If I'm topical and I'm staying very current. And that's what you are. You're very current and very topical. And so this series is coming out on HBO Max. You did something very, very much very key, audiobook. Talk about that whole relation and hearing the words articulated by the brilliant actress.
Can I tell you, again, it was another one of those, I do think of my life and I talk about my life in spiritual terms because I have had a lot of hardship. It has not all been easy sailing trying to get to the top. There, you hit a platform
yes, Tina.
And then you fall. And then you're building back up again. So it's been a long career. But sometimes along the way, you get these opportunities that just come to you. You have to be prepared. It's what they say that luck is opportunity met with preparedness. And I've been prepared. I'm minding my own business on Facebook. And I had an editor who at one point had turned down my the opportunity to publish my book.
Wow.
And I had posted that day, well, if you guys are loving Bridgerton, don't forget my book is still out where I wrote about Queen Charlotte. And I put the cover of a photo of the cover of the book on Facebook, went on about my business. Later on that afternoon, I got a private message and it was Carol saying, Tina, I don't want to make the mistake that I made earlier when we didn't publish your book, because look what has happened to you and it and onward. I am at Recorded Books now. I'm in acquisitions. Are the audiobook rights available?
Wow.
Once again, I go, whoa.
I love your life.
So I go, yes, they are. And she said, well, I would like to acquire them. We'd like to do a whole big push. You will be in charge of choosing, who narrates your book. And I'm thinking, boy, I had a number of Black British actresses that I thought could do a really credible job. And she said, you send me your list. She said, we also have a list of some people who have worked and done audiobooks for us who are also Black, female, and British. We'll send you their names, and then you go through and you pick out the one that you want to narrate your book.
Mm-hmm.
And my God, their list was alphabetical. And at the top of the list is Adjoa Andoh. And Adjoa Andoh, for those of you out there who don't recognize her by name, she plays Lady Danbury
yes. Mm-hmm.
on Bridgerton.
Absolutely.
She is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I was concerned, the search was over.
Right.
Was over.
Right.
So I called Carol and I said, are you kidding me? And he said, well, she's done like 200 audiobooks. And I said, this is the actress. Mm-hmm. She will give it the class and the gravitas. She will also do other characters. She's an amazing, amazing actress. I knew of her prior to Bridgerton. And so I said, please tell me that we can have her. And she says, I'll get back to you in a couple of days. And sure enough, a couple of days later, she said, Adjoa is yours.
Wow.
So working with this phenomenal actress who made that book come to life. Oh, Rushion, it is an experience, for anyone who listens to that. But at certain points in time, no joke, I will listen to the audiobook and I'll say, wow, I wrote that.
Yes. That's brilliance of her bringing it to life. But I want to say this before we wrap up the interview, and it's something about being prepared that really comes across when I share this interview, and I hope people listen. When she got the call for Roots, despite dire consequences that happened in her life prior to that, she was ready. When she got the call for Jackie Kennedy Onassis, despite the success of Sally Hemings and it's a project with African American female talking about an iconic white American female, she was ready. When she got the call about the rights to her book, Charlotte Sophia, she was ready. Not only ready, but also to be bold enough to say, this is the one we should select. There's something about that really rings true about your life, Tina Andrews, and it makes it very special that you're a decision maker. You're a person who understands what you want to do in life and has led so much to your level of success. If you had to give someone some advice before we exit here, what would you give somebody advice who's watching the show or listening to this interview on Money Making Conversations?
I will say you need to be your authentic self. Mm-hmm. Whoever that is, first of all, do not let anybody tell you what you can't be. Mm-hmm. You will show them who you are, which means who you can be. Try not to follow the road that is whittled down by heavy traffic, doing what everybody else is doing. Mm-hmm. You create your own road and do that thing that God has placed on your heart for you to do. It's okay to be singular and unique and authentic, because if you like it, someone out there is also going to like it. And right now certainly in this business that we're in, we got 500 or 600 channels. You got to feed that beast. There is someone who's going to want what you have to say. Mm-hmm. So say it.
I love it. Thank you for coming on Money Making Conversation, Tina Andrews.
Thank you for having me.
And if you want to hear any of my interviews or see any of my interviews, please go to moneymakingconversation.com. I'm Rushion McDonald. I am your host.